All right, team, what's up? Happy Thursday, everybody. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE, lead faculty for cervical and lumbar spine divisions. Thank you so much for joining on the PT on ICE Daily Show. To all of those listening live here, to all of those catching the recording, certainly appreciate having you in the audience. So it is Leadership Thursday, but that also means it's Gut Check Thursday. So let's do it. What do we have on tap for this week? We've got Annie on the run. So we've got 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 double unders and ab mat sit-ups, but you're going to run 200 meters after each of those rounds. Annie on the run. So make sure to knock that out over the next couple of days. Go ahead and tag us. ICE trained, ICE physio. Love watching you all and love suffering with you over the weekend on these Gut Check Thursdays. All right, as far as courses coming up, we got a whole bunch of them this weekend. A few notables: Pregnancy and Postpartum Live, our new live course in the CMFA division for pregnancy and postpartum. That is going to be at Onward Greenville this weekend. Justin Dunaway and the crew will be up with Total Spine Thrust in Vancouver. Again, thrilled to be back in Canada. And then we'll have extremity management. I'm actually going to be out there in Victor, New York, with our crew at Limitless, with Mark, with Kristen. I can't wait to watch that extremity course again. And been incredible to see their full revamp of that course over the past year. So kind of excited to see what is now a truly polished product. So I will be out in Victor, New York. I'll probably broadcast from my personal Instagram to give you all a little bit of a glimpse inside of that class. Also, ICE Sampler only has 7 spots left. So for those of you who are thinking about jumping into ICE Sampler, going to be at the end of next month over in Hendersonville outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Going to be an absolute blast, and we have a packed house. So 7 more seats, then we got to call ICE Sampler sold out. So if you want to jump in this week. Okay, team, it's Leadership Thursday. Let's talk about pricing. Specifically, why don't ICE courses ever go on sale? So I've got to do this in 2 parts. So this first one, I want to focus on the idea of sales, the philosophy around it, some principles, set that foundation. And then next week, we'll talk specifically about why a company like ICE in particular would not benefit from putting their courses on sale. We'll explain some of the logistics behind that, maybe some things you haven't thought of or that are quite as front of mind. But first things first, let's set the foundation. Team, the process of coming to a fair price is extremely involved. It's extremely involved because there's few things that are more important. So when we say involved, I'll give you a number of examples of things that go into this process, but understand there are a ton of them. First of all, cost of product development, right? What kind of resources do you have to invest to bring that product to market? Obviously, that gets considered in the eventual price of the product. Number 2, what is the estimated return on the investment for your consumer? So what can they expect to get from it? How much value? In the case of ICE courses, how much better are they going to be? How much more can they charge for their services? How many other niche markets can they access? How much value are they going to walk away with? That is obviously considered into the price of your product. Number 3, what is a fair price compared to market averages? So if you look out at what other people are charging of things that are relatively similar in quality, relatively similar in design, what are people charging? What is a fair market price? Number 4, what is sustainable for your business model in the long run? Nothing matters if you can't sustain it. So what number would have to be coming in in order for you to be able to do this pretty much forever? Because that's the goal, right? Once you find it, can you create this and have longevity? This is 4 of a nearly infinite number of things that you're thinking about when you're trying to hit that fair price. It is not a willy-nilly number, and getting it right is critical. Few things are as important as finding a win-win price point. Something that works for your company, that considers all the aforementioned metrics, something that the customer walks away and says, I would have paid more for that, or I'm certainly more than happy with what I got for that. Everybody's winning. Few things are more important than figuring out what that number is for any given product, service, etc. The key to figuring that out is holding the price constant in tweaking anything else. Let me give you a few examples, right? Before you consider a price adjustment, considering how much time and intention you put into labeling that price point, as we discussed above, think about all the other things that you could manipulate before you consider changing that. Number 1, marketing and packaging. right? You know the value there. You've considered the price point. If it's not hitting, is it coming to market looking right? Is it packaged right? Is it appealing to the consumer? Number two, the delivery, the way it's being delivered. Is it meeting the person where they are? Is it convenient? Is it digestible? Number three, is there community around it? Do people who are using the product feel like they're a part of something bigger? All of these things are things that we would encourage you to consider changing before you change that really well or adjust that really well thought out price point that was based on so many key metrics. Consider changing anything before changing the price. Ultimately, encouraging you to hold the line because you're probably right, considering how much thought you put into it, or you're at least very close. But if you cave and you fluctuate the price, you are never going to know what your product's worth. And you can't build enduring business without that key piece of knowledge. This is ultimately the problem. Now, I want, as a source of analogy, I want you to think about your pricing, this concept, in the same way you think about a patient's plan of care, which you very intentionally come to, in the same way you very intentionally come to your price point. When you're developing a plan of care, you've got that tendinopathy patient, right? It is a very thoughtful process. You do a really good subjective exam. You look at all of their history leading up to what brought them to come see you. You're considering acute to chronic workload ratios. You're looking at what new sports they began. What does their overall volume look like? What does their lifestyle look like? You're considering so many factors. Then you're doing a really targeted physical exam. You're ruling in, you're ruling out, you're narrowing down. You're combining all this great information with that patient's relevant goals, and you are developing and committing to a plan of care in the same intentional way that you commit to a price point. But you're developing and committing to this very intentional plan of care. Now, if your patient doesn't immediately respond, we never encourage you to drastically alter that plan of care, considering how much thought, consideration, intention went into it. Instead, we consider you to think about all of the other things. Is the home program really being done well? Do they have what they need to be able to execute all of the things that you ask them to execute? Are they adjusting their lifestyle behaviors in the way that you counseled them to do so? Did you sell it in a way that actually gets them to believe it's going to work? All of the other things before you make any sort of plan of care adjustment. Always look at everything else, because in the majority of cases, considering the amount of intent and thought you put into it, your plan of care is probably right, or at least very close. A sale, though, to continue the analogy, is worse than a subtle adjustment to your plan of care. A sale is significantly worse than an adjustment. It's much more akin to giving that patient something that offers dramatic temporary relief, but isn't the long-term fix. That's far more what a sale to a product is. It's one thing to adjust your price a little bit because you felt like you really didn't get it in between the buoys. I can see subtle adjustments to the plan of care, but a sale is significantly worse than that. It is like giving the patient dramatic temporary relief that you both know is not the long-term fix. Team, a sale is to your product as a cortisone shot is to your tendinopathy patient's plan of care. It confuses, it devalues, and it derails. It is not the long-term solution. Price change, huge sales, huge discounts are not the long-term solution. Cortisone shots are not the long-term solution. You and your patient, in this case, are not coming to a conclusion that the loading is worth it and the lifestyle changes are worth it and doing the work is worth it. Doing the work is a win-win. In fact, you have no idea if you were onto something. No idea when that cortisone shot is given. And the problem is, just like sales, it's short-lived. And it's going to be really tough on the other side of it to convince that person to pay full effort, to pay full price, if you will, for an outcome that they think they just got for nothing. But they didn't get it for nothing. It is short lived. You can't continue to give it for nothing. That's unsustainable. Whether we're talking about cortisone shots or we're talking about sales, they're both unsustainable. Repetitive cortisone shots to a given area have a very similar outcome to repetitive sales to a given product, and neither of them are good. Neither of them are good, but they feel the same. Because you didn't hold the line on your price and look at all the other things that you could adjust, because you didn't hold the line on the plan of care and look at all the other ways, instead you bailed and you panicked, you're now going down a route that you're never going to see a positive outcome towards. Your goal in business is to gain the most accurate possible picture of your value. So you can consistently, not just one product, but so you can consistently create win-win sustainable scenarios, not just for this one product, but for the one that's going to build from that, from the one that is another version of that. You cannot make good decisions with bad data. And for this reason, we are encouraging you to avoid the business cortisone shot, which is the sale and the discount. If you don't get good data about what your product is actually worth, what kind of value you're actually bringing, the only way you do that is to hold price constant. If you don't get that data, you are never going to make good decisions. You are never going to create win-win scenarios. Don't panic. Hold the line. You're probably right. Yes, it might require a very subtle adjustment, but the odds are, considering what you put into either someone's plan of care or the price point of a given product, you're probably very close, and it's other things that need to be adjusted. Adjust those things so that you can over deliver. Don't panic and lose any sense of clarity on the overall clinical or business picture. Give it some thought. I cannot wait to unpack the actual ice specific side, but this we need to understand first. Team, have a wonderful Thursday. PTOnice.com. Cannot wait to see you next week.